In this tutorial, we will create this 3D model from scratch using references, and in the next videos, we will cover the texturing, lighting, and animation. If you want to see the full process recording now, feel free to go check it out on Patreon. And with that, let's get started. Okay, let's get started with the modeling of this design. I'm in a default Blender 4.0 scene. I haven't updated to the newer versions yet. So the first thing I'm going to do is A and X to delete everything. And then I'm going to go into the top hand view. We're going to be using a reference image for this design. So the Akuto Studio website that I got this reference image from, they make this Chord Machine keyboard. They have a really cool design and website, so I went ahead and grabbed a snip from there. So the first thing we're going to do back in Blender is to import this reference image. So I'm going to Shift A, add an image reference. I'm going to go to where I've got that saved. Cool. Now that the reference image is in there, we're going to use a very similar workflow to the other designs that we've done so far on this channel. So the first thing I'm going to do is Shift A and add in a cube. And then before we kind of get too far, I'm going to rename this collection to be the model. I'm going to click C while you're hovering in this area to make a new collection. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to name this reference. And I'm going to move that reference image into that collection. So now we can just also make sure this is out. Perfect. Now we have this. We'll go back into here and make sure we're selected. And then I'm going to go Alt-Z into X-ray mode. This is the default cube size. I'm just going to scale up this reference image until that is pretty close to that point. So move it down, scale it up. This image is not perfectly straight on top. So this was just a good top view, basically the only one they had on their website. So I'm going to now grab this cube, tab into edit mode, and then I'm just going to grab these vertices, GX, bring them over, GX, bring them over. And I need to turn on my screencast keys real quick. Sweet. Now screencasts are in the bottom. They look really small. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay. So now we have the cube to the right size. I'm going to go into the right hand view, and then I'm using the pie menu for that. So if you hold tilde, you can get to each of these. It's a really quick way to navigate. So I just held tilde, go to right hand view. I'm just going to SZ, and I'm going to hold control, and that's going to let me snap. And we got to make sure I'm in X-ray mode. SZ scale. I'm just going to bring it down to something that looks right. I would use pictures from the website here to show kind of how thick it is. That's where I'm getting this reference image. And also you can see that there's a very small chamfer on this. We're going to be using that here in a second. So I'm going to go back into the top view, out of X-ray mode. And then the next thing I'm going to do is go into tab and edit mode, go to the edges, Alt-A to deselect everything. I'm going to hide the reference category for now, which should be in here. And then I'm going to take this too, and then I think there's a thing where you can go Control Alt and select edges. Is a new thing I learned, which is you can grab edges with a similar direction length. So now I'm going to put that reference image back in, go into Alt-Z. Basically, I just want to make sure this bevel is pretty much the same. So I'm going to do Control B and then scroll my mouse wheel up. I'm going to do 10 segments. And we're basically just wanting to get this close to the design that we have here. Okay. Out of Alt-Z, that's set. I'm going to hide the reference image again. I'm going to tab into edit mode, select these top two faces, and then we're going to hit period on the numpad key to center it just to be able to see. And now we're going to Control B. I'm going to scroll down until I get just one, or this the basic fillet, chamfer here instead of having a bunch of vertices. I'm going to give it about that much, and the next thing I'm going to do is click 2, Alt. I want to grab each of these and don't want them to be perfectly sharp. So then I'm going to zoom in on them, and I'm also going to give a Control B bevel here. You don't want the amount to be very much. This is not acting how it's supposed to. So let's just do them one at a time. So Alt, Control B. There's a small one here. Same thing on this one. Alt, Control V. There. Go to the bottom ones. Alt, select, Control B. Just make sure they kind of look similar to the other one. And then on the bottom, Alt, select again, Control B. Probably won't even see this, but it's good to have. So now if we tab into edit mode, we can right click, shade this auto smooth, and you've got a nice chamfer edge there. Now, the rest of this design is going to use a lot of Boolean. So if you don't have the Bool tools add-on enabled, make sure you go to Edit, Preferences, and then in your add-on section, search for Bool. And you want to make sure this is on. We're going to be using this pretty frequently. So the key points of this design are these knobs. And the way we're going to do that is we're just going to cut those directly out. And the topology won't be great, but we're going to be using some procedural shaders for this. So later on in the next videos, it won't really matter. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a array tool to make all of these. So I'm going to hold shift and then right click in the center of this point here. That's going to put my 3D cursor at least pretty close. And then also let's name this cube to be the housing. Turn my caps lock off. And then now we're going to do shift A, mesh, cylinder. And because we're going to use this for a Boolean and we want this edge to be pretty sharp without using a lot of subdivision, I want to use a lot of segments in this. So we're going to crank this up to something like 80. And then I'm going to tab into edit mode, just scale this down to the right size. We're wanting to do the outside edge of the hole. It's kind of hard to see with these colors, but Alt-Z, it's easier to do it in tab. And so that looks really close to me. The next thing we're going to do is make an array. So out of X-ray mode, and then I'm going to hide this end panel. And then while I've got this selected, go to the modifier section, A, and then I love Blender 4.0. You can just hit A for array or M for mirror, and you can just select anything with that first letter. We're going to do an array. Go back into X-ray mode, and then basically we just want to make sure that each of these lines up. So we're using the X factor here. So I'm just going to bring this over. I'm holding shift so that it doesn't move too much. And then what I'm going to do is just crank this factor up all the way out to here. And because there's a little bit of air that gets multiplied out, it's good to look at your last one. That'll tell you if you need to bring it back. So I'm going to get it as close as I can. That looks really good. And then if you go out of X-ray mode, that's what they look like. So now basically what we need is we need this exact same thing duplicated 4 times down this diagonal. So Blender modifiers work from top to bottom. We're going to click A, add an array modifier again, and then we're going to set the 0 or the X to 0 for now. And then I'm going to decrease the Y to a negative value and then go back into Alt-Z. And then first thing I'm going to do is try to get them at least relatively close. So I'm going to use the X factor to bring it over, and then the Y factor to bring it back up, like that. And then I'm going to go out to the back one, the last one in this row. It's very hard to see. It may be hard to see it on the YouTube, but you should be able to see it on your own. I'm going to leave that right about there, and then just double check this X. And you can see even holding shift, those increments are pretty big. But this one right here, if I can get to it again, is basically right on. So then I'm going to go out of Alt-Z. You can see those are there. And then now all we have to do is to crank those up the last 2 times. If you go back into X-ray mode, it's pretty close. Again, this picture is kind of not perfectly perpendicular to the view. So now basically what I want to do is just kind of look and see if from top to bottom the gaps are the same. So I'm going to hide this real quick. Go back into X-ray mode. This is not a sure science way to do it. I can just tell that there's 1 and then around a half of a grid there, and 1 a little bit over a half. So basically what I'm doing, I'm just going to grab this and then GY to move it along this axis. I'm going to do right at 1.5 on this one, and then looks like we're right at 1.5 on this one as well. And because this cube, we scaled it along its x-axis, its original Y, we know that it's centered, and now this is centered as well because we're using the increments. So now if we go out of X-ray mode, basically what we do is we need to cut these into this. So I want this to all be one mesh. So I'm going to go up here to the array modifiers and Control A over them. Basically what that's doing, it's creating each of these to be one solid mesh. If you tab, this is one piece now. So now what I want to do is GZ, bring this up to a height that kind of makes sense to cut into the keyboard. And then we're going to do another thing here. I'm going to hover over this area, hit C. I want to make a trash collection, and I'm going to disable it by default. This is just a good way to not lose your work. And also this reference needs to be in here. That's why it wasn't working before. So now what I need to do is cut out these. But before we do that, I want to save these. So I'm going to Shift D and then move it to the trash collection. And so I'm going to turn this on for a second and just call this the cutter. I'm basically saving it because I want to use the geometry later. And then what I'm going to do now is we're going to use the bool tool add-on. So the way that you do that, make sure I get the order right. Whatever you want to cut out from the piece, you're going to click this and then shift click the next piece that you want to cut it out from. And then you're doing Control Shift minus, or no, Control Shift numpad minus, and that's going to delete out and use a Boolean. So now if you tab, you're going to get these lines around these. These won't really bother you too bad because again, if you wanted to do this with like some PBR textures and some mapping, you would need to take some extra precautions, but we're going to use a couple of different methods to do it to make this a lot simpler of a project. So now we have these. The only thing that we need is we're going to need to be able to put the buttons back in. So I'm going to turn the trash collection on and then select the cutter that we saved. I'm going to tab into edit mode and then click P to separate by loose parts. And so now each of these is its own button. And then the other thing we need to do is grab them all. I'm going to go into the right hand view and just select everything and then right click them and then set the origin to the geometry and make sure that you're holding Alt while you click that. So that's going to apply it to all the cylinders. So now each of these has its origin in the center. And what that lets us do is we can now just, first of all, let's go ahead and make these smaller. I'm going to go into X-ray mode and I'm going to grab his top face, just bring it down to something that looks good. And while I've already got it selected, we might as well go ahead and add our bevel for this. I think I'm just going to do another chamfer again. So bring it all the way down. And then, actually no, for these we're just going to do a regular bevel because I don't want to take the time and it probably won't be seen. So I'm going to Control B, bevel them. I'm just going to bring it down to something that looks nice. Something like that. Actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and save this again. Let's take all of these that we've selected and then hit M to move it to a new collection and save them as the keys. And basically, I want to grab all the keys, Shift D to duplicate them, and then move them into trash. So now we can turn off our trash collection, but in our keys, we've got each of these. So an easy way to select all this stuff is you can grab the keys tool, right click, and then S to select objects. That'll select everything in this collection. And now again, you can kind of see the origins are in weird points. So I'm just going to right click, set origin, hold Alt, origin to geometry again. And then I'm going to tab. We've still got these selected, which is nice from edit mode. I'm just going to look at this one right here. Control B. Give it a nice bevel, plenty of segments. Something like, I think I have 6 on mine right now. And then the other thing that we want to do is this is exactly lined up with our last cut. So what we want to do is take all of these, tab into edit mode, make sure our selection is to individual origins. If you have a mouse with a couple of programmable buttons, I have mine set to where I can just press the button and it automatically pulls this up. And then I also have one that changes the pivot point. So if I press the button, I can then change what I'm wanting to look at, which are very handy. So I'm going to grab all of these, make sure that you press A, and then we're going to scale and then hit Shift Z. That's basically going to make it where it doesn't scale along the Z axis. And then we just want to bring these back just a little bit. So it looks like my scale is like 0.98. We can go back and change this later. But now our pieces are inset. They've got a little bit of a gap. You'll be able to see that once the light hits. And then you also may see a little bit of a shading error. So if you go up here, you can see that there's an issue. This is a flat face, but it looks like it has some pinching. One thing that we can do to fix this is if you click this and go to the modifiers and do W for a weighted normal. I don't understand all the math on how this modifier works, but for things where you cut booleans out, it is a lifesaver. It will completely fix most areas as long as you have bevel supporting edges on all your edges. So now you can tell there's no shading errors on this piece. So now we go back. I want to turn the reference image plane back on and then Alt Z. The way we're going to do this, the rest of this is we can go ahead and do the knob here first. I'm going to right click in the middle and then Shift A. Mesh cylinder. I'm going to leave it at 80. Matter of fact, I might even crank this one up to 100 because it's a little bit larger. So each of these lines is going to be a little bit longer. Tab in edit mode, scale it down. Looks like I'm really close. I'm going to just click G in object mode, center it up again. That looks really good. And then we're going to go over here. I'm just going to go GZ to bring that up. I'm going to put it the same height. I can kind of see where the bottom of these are. And then we're going to do the exact same thing we did before. Take the piece we want to cut, select the piece that we want to cut it out from, Control Shift minus on your numpad, and it is right where we need it to be. And you can tell that there's a good amount of edges there. So what I want to go ahead and do is let's hide all of our keys. And now this is an issue with the weighted normal. So if you turn the keys back on, or the these are the wrong ones. Where are the keys? Yep. These right here, it looks like they're cutting in, but basically what's happening is that weighted normal is calculating it weird. And so what we need to do is we need to give it edge supporting loops. So what I would do is, it's a little bit tedious, but Alt-Z and go 1. Basically, I want to box select all of these vertices right here. Matter of fact, we can go ahead and take all of these. But we don't want any of these selecting edges. So I'm going to hit 2. And then a good way to do this is just use C, which is basically the brush tool. And then if you hold the middle mouse, it'll deselect. So what I need to do right now, it's a little bit tedious, but I need to deselect and make sure you don't do what I just did, which is hit some of those edges in the middle. But if you hold Alt while you're using your deselect, I'm going to go ahead and deselect all of these right here. Once you're done with that, just right click. And so now what you should have is you should have all the edges that you need here. Now, the other thing that we need is we don't want to have any of these side edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into side view. I'm going to use C again, and I'm just going to drag my mouse along this way. Make sure I stay within the lines. Okay. And now what we should have is I'll go add an Alt-Z. We've got basically the top and the bottom edges selected. So now what I want to do is just add a bevel to these. So Control B, bring them out. You don't want to go too far with this. Just barely bring it out. You may have to reduce your bevel or your edges count on these if you have a less beefy computer. So you can see mine's taking a while to update. Something like that. I'm going to click in Edit View, Tab. And then it looks like we lost our bevel modifier or our weighted normal modifier when we did this. So I'm going to right click here, click W, weighted normal. And now we're right back where we need to be. We're going to have to probably do that again on this area, but I just wanted to show what the process is for those. So now you've got nice beveled edges. We're not even, I think we are shading smooth, but even with these cutouts, some janky lines coming across, you still get good shading. So we're going to do that again. I'm going to go back in X-ray mode, and then we're going to use this shape. So probably how I would do this is just right click in the middle. Actually, what I want to do is let's tab into edit mode, Alt-Z, and then let's click this face, and then Shift S, cursor to selected. And what that's basically going to do is it's going to put this right in the middle of this circle face. So now if I do Shift A, actually let's tab out of edit mode, make sure we're in our housing or our model selection. Shift A, mesh, let's do another cylinder. And then I'm going to scale it down, and then I'm going to go into X-ray mode again, GY, bring it up. Tab in edit mode. So now what I need, I'm basically going to only look at this. If you use, I think it's the backslash key, it will isolate it. So what I need to do is I'm going to go into X-ray mode. I'm going to, actually I'm not in X-ray mode, but Alt-Z. I basically need to make this an oval. So to do that, I'm going to get rid of all these vertices here. And then I'm going to select all of these, Shift D to duplicate, and then press R to rotate. I'm going to hold Control and go to 180 degrees, GX to bring it over. Now I can just take these two edges, select F for face or fill, do the same here. And then I can hold 2 and select the top, fill it in, hold 2 or press 2, hold Alt, click this to fill this in. And now what we need to do is if we need to change it, we can just move these out and it'll still be a perfectly semicircle piece here. So now if we go back, press that same button, that backslash key that will unhide everything. I'm going to go to the top view. I'm going to press A and just scale everything down. This actually is really, really close on this side. Scale it down like so. I'm going to grab these and bring it over like this. Now this is basically exactly what we need to cut out this piece. So GZ, bring it up to roughly the same height. Follow the same format. Select this one. Select this. Control Shift minus. You can see we lose our weighted normal modifier every time we do that. So now we're just going to use grab these two edges, and then what I also, or this bottom face using 3. Now I'm going to go into 2, edge select. I'm going to grab, make sure you hold Shift and select this. Now I'm going to select Control. I'm going to click, and that's going to click the shortest path between those. So I'm going to use that to go all the way around this edge. And then now I'm going to Control B and just bring this up. Something like that. And now you can see those shading errors again. If we just go back, add another weighted normal, we're good to go. So that's almost it. The last things that we need are we need to make these 2 buttons, and then we also need to create this face. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to just hide the reference image, go out of X-ray mode. This is perfectly centered along the Y, so I'm going to do Shift A, Mesh Cube. And actually, before I do that, I'm just going to delete that and then make sure we're in this collection. I don't want the cursor to be here anymore. I want it to be back perfectly on the axis. You can do that with Shift C. And then I'm going to do Shift A, add in a cube mesh. And then basically, I'm just going to scale this down a little bit, trying to make this face over here, which is going to be the electronics panel. And then just GZ to bring it over like so. And then I'm going to scale it again. So tab into edit mode, scale it down to something like that. And then we're going to use the trick of going to SZ and go ahead and shorten this. That way I can deselect everything with Alt A and then Control Alt select this. And that's going to be the only lines or edges with that length and direction. So if I go into top, I'm going to turn the reference back on, Alt Z to view the edge. You can see we're not exactly lined up, but it's going to be really close. So while I've got this done, I'm going to basically use the, I want to match kind of this bevel right here. So actually I'm going to go out of Alt Z and then just Control B bevel and just get something that looks good with that. I think right about there looks good for me. And then I'm going to scale it up to 10 segments on the bevel using the middle mouse wheel. Just hit select. And then all I want to do with this is just barely cut out from the top. So I'm just going to go GZ, bring this up to something like this. And then let's just double check how far we are. I want to have enough room to make sure we bevel this top edge. That looks good to me. So we're going to do the same thing. Select this one, Shift select this, Control Shift minus. And then now we need to bevel these edges. So we're going to hit 2. It should, if this was good topology, we'd be able to select the whole loop. But now I'm just going to select Control to go around the top loop. And it is kind of hard to see, but it shouldn't be too bad. Go to here. And then I'm going to Shift select the bottom one. Oop, make sure it's Shift select. And then use Control to select around the edges just like we did before. All the way around. Like so. And I'm going to hit period on my numpad key so it kind of centers. I'm just going to go somewhere to look. I'll just go to this corner for now. And then basically we just need geometry to make the weighted modifier or the weighted normal modifier work. So I'm just going to give this a nice bevel like this. And then we're going to add a weighted normal. And that is it. It's exactly what we're looking for. So then the last couple pieces that we'll need, I'm going to turn the keys collection back on so we can see our beautiful keys here. We're going to create these buttons for this, and then we also will make this little cord as well. So what I would do for the glass panel is I know I'm going to need a screen, so like an image or a block that I can put the texture on, and then also a glass cover. So what I would do is I'm going to click 3 and grab this face right here, and then just Shift D, and then P, separate by selection. So now if I tab out of edit mode and I grab this one, this is here. I'm just going to bring this up slightly. I'm going to tab into edit mode, select A to select everything. I'm going to change the name of this to our LED screen, just so we know what it is. I'm just going to scale it down a little bit because I'm going to have a glass piece that kind of goes over everything like that. And then I'm going to Shift D again, and then I'm going to make this to be the glass piece. And I'm just a model, I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to tab into edit mode. And then while everything is selected, just click E and Z. It looks weird right now because I copied it from this, which has the weighted normal. So I'm going to click weighted normal on this screen right here, make sure that doesn't have a weighted normal. And click this also, make sure it doesn't have weighted normal. And then what I want to do is bevel this top edge, Control B, something like that. And then also, I'm going to press period to, on the numpad key to look at it. I'm going to zoom in. I want to add a solidify modifier to this. And it looks like this face is solid on the bottom. What we got going on here? Okay. This face, I think, is an actual solid face. I don't want it to be. So I'm going to delete that face. I'm also going to turn off the reference for a second. Okay, now we've got basically what I want. I just want to have some thickness to this glass piece. I'm just going to bring this down. Also, I don't want it to point to the outside. I want it to point in, so I'm going to bring the offset to be negative just slightly, like so. And then I'm just going to right click, shade this auto smooth. And then also, just so it doesn't get any shading errors down here, let's just grab the bottom edge and Control B. Give this a little bit of a bevel. Control B. Oh no, it's not going to work. we should be able to just do that, and then to apply it, you won't ever see that. And then the other thing I want to do is make sure this kind of lines up with the outside of this. Our screen piece that we have here should fit inside. So I'm going to bring both of these up with GZ. And then I just want to make sure that this piece right here fits inside the bottom. So to do that, I'd probably just go into Alt-Z. And then let's go ahead and apply our solidify modifier on the top one. So Control-A. And that way we can go into X-ray mode and we can see where the thickness is on that. And then I'm going to grab this guy. Tab in edit mode, just going to scale it down slightly less than our thickness. And then I'm going to grab both of these, tab back into edit mode, and just scale them until they meet close to this edge that we made. So something like that right there. So now I can just bring I'm going to go out of X-ray mode with Alt-Z. Just going to bring this down like this. I don't want it to intersect. A good way to do this is to just go over here to the properties for this in the viewport display. You can change the color of what this appears like. Actually, let's see. It should be here. Here, viewport display. This isn't it. Can't remember where to do it here, but basically I just don't want this to go through here. So I'm just going to bring it right above the place where that line turns darker, and then just bring this down also. Make sure this doesn't have any modifiers. GZ, like this. So now we got our screen underneath. We got this panel, like be a little thick now. We might bring it back down. And when we do our shading, we'll double check all that. So now we've got our screen, we've got our buttons. We need to make these two. So I'm going to use the same trick. I'm going to tab into edit mode, select this face, Shift D, P by selection. And then I'm going to call this our knob. And then what I want to do is just GZ to bring this up right up to the edge of this plane. You can see it's already kind of got the inset from that, which will look good. And then what we want to do is tab into edit mode. We're going to inset this face to this point, and then we're going to extrude this face up with Z. We're going to kill that weighted the weighted normal modifier there, and then we're going to right click shade auto smooth. Well, this looks like it's messed up. Let's just do this. Let's go back into here. Select this face, Shift C or Shift S, cursor to selected, and let's just add in a new piece. So Shift A, mesh, cylinder, scale this down right up until it fits. Take the top face, GZ, take this one also. I'm gonna go into X-ray mode, just bring it up to the same height as I cut everything else. And then I want this face to be basically flush. So out of X-ray mode, I'm just gonna go GZ, bring it to right here. In the top view, I'm going to turn my reference plane back on and then Alt-Z. Basically, I just want to see kind of the diameter of this circle. I know it's not going to be exactly the same, but I'm going to go out of X-ray mode, select this top face, back to the top using tilde, inset, and then Alt-Z. It's kind of hard to see, but right in this area, you can see that's where it starts getting raised. So this is kind of like the flat portion. I'm going to click inset again, just so I have a place for the subdivision surface when we do that. And then I'm also going to inset one more time. It's not perfectly lined up, like I said, but I'm going to get it close to the same size. And then out of X-ray mode, right click, extrude face along normal, bring it up. And then what we're going to do now is we want to bevel all the edges that we want to not get affected. So I'm going to GZ and hold control and bring this up 0.2. And so that's just so I can know how far to put it back. So I'm going to select these edges right here and Control B, give them plenty of segments. That way the subdivision surface doesn't take them over. And then I'm going to do Control 2. And what that's going to do is it's going to subdivide our mesh. And then basically I want to do this for the top also. So I'm going to select this top face, Control B, and also I'm going to turn this off while I do this. So I'm just going to Control B and bring those segments down, something like that. And then now if I turn this back on here with these icons, you'll see we'll get this like nice fall off shape. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, Alt Z, and then I'm going to do Control R and add in a loop right here. That's going to help control, and I'm going to hit escape just to let it put there. And then I'm going to turn this off for both of these. And then I'm just going to grab this edge loop right here. I'm going to tap out of X-ray mode and then just GZ, bring that up like that. And then also I'm going to press S and just scale it out slightly. That's going to help us give this knob the shape that we want. I'm just going to set this to 1 and then turn this back on. And if we right click shade this auto smooth, it should be good. Yeah, I think we could do Control 2 when we get to the point that we need it, but that's basically the knob. I'm going to go right, GZ, and then bring it down 0.2. Cool. So now you've got your twist knob, you've got all your buttons, your LCD thing. The last thing that we want to do is kind of make this shape. So in Alt-Z, you can see it's just a rounded button, but it does have this cool little inset detail. So I'm going to tab into edit mode on this guy, select this. Actually, let's just do this the same way as we did before. Let's tab and select this, Shift C. Oop, always press the wrong one. Shift S, cursor just selected, and then out of edit mode in the model, Shift A, let's add in a cylinder. Let's change it from 100 to 64. And then what I want to do is tab, Alt-Z, 1, and then get rid of all of these. We're basically going to make this same shape. So delete the vertices, Shift D, R, around 180, GX, and then has 2 to select these two faces and these two. Hold Alt on the top to fill, hold Alt on the top, on the bottom to fill with F. And then basically I just want to right click, set the origin to geometry, and then Alt G resets the position to the 3D cursor. So if I do Alt G, oh, that's going to not actually do it. Let's do Shift S, selection to cursor. So now I can just tab in edit mode, scale this down. Basically we need to scale it down to the height, S like this. And then I'm going to click 1, bring these over to this point, bring these over to this point. And then what we're going to do is go out of X-ray mode. I'm just going to bring this up, go into right view, like so. Just want these to kind of have the same bottom as this piece. And then I'm going to hide the housing real quick. And this, I guess. And I want to bevel the bottom because I know we're going to use a subdivision potentially on this. So let's go ahead and give the bottom just 4 segments or so like that. And then Alt-Z, I'm going to grab the top and just GZ, bring it down. I'm going to do Alt-H, that'll put everything back. I want this button to kind of be this height. So I'm only going to grab this, Tab, GZ, bring it down. And now I need to make this kind of center detail. So we should be able to do Control R. No, it's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click 2 and grab both of these, right click and do subdivide. That's going to give us a nice little edge here. And then I should be able to bevel this. Perfect. So I'm just going to go to the top, Control B, scroll down until we've got 1 segment like so. Just a little bit of a thing there. And then I'm just going to grab both of these faces, extrude them along their normal, bring it up, and then if we set our thing to individual origin, then we could try scaling this, and that should give us a nice little bit of a bevel. I want to see if they're the same for both. And then let's do that a little bit. Let's just scale it some like that. And then they're a little tall. I'm basically looking to see that ridge, so I'm just going to GZ to bring that down, something like that. And then right in the right-hand view, I'm going to grab all of this, making sure I'm going to use C and not get the middle edges here. Just kind of tricky. Oh, we're in face select. So I'm going to Alt-A, deselect 2, select all the edges, and then deselect all the middle ones using C and then the middle mouse, pressing down on your wheel. And then I also want to select this edge, this edge, this edge, and this edge. And then basically I'm just going to give them a tiny bevel. So Control B, at least go to 3 so that your shading works well. Just like that. There's your nice rocker button. It looks like it's slightly a little bit too large than I want, so I'm going to scale it down. And then it also looks like these pieces could be brought over. So I'm going to go 1, Alt-Z, grab these only, out of X-ray mode, GX, bring them right to where we want it. And then the same thing, Alt-Z, grab these, GX, right where we want it. Okay, that is most of the modeling. The last thing that we want to do is just kind of make this little cord. So in this, also I need to rename these. This right here is, we'll just call this the rocker. And then this right here is our knob. Last piece is to make this chord. We're going to use just a curve for this for now, but I'm just going to right click. Actually, we're going to use just Shift C, put our cursor back here. Shift A, add in a cube, GX, bring it over for the plug. Scale it down. I'm going to go into X-ray mode. I'm just getting a size reference off of this. I'm going to go into the side view, so tilde and then right SZ, just scale it down until it's a rectangle. And then we're going to use our little command trick, so Alt-A to deselect everything. And then we're going to do Control-Alt-Click on this. So now if I go back into the right view, basically I just want to bevel these like this. I'm going to give it plenty of segments, it doesn't really matter. So 10, like that. Out of X-ray mode, I'm going to hide our reference image for now. That's basically that little piece. You can just bring it over. You can make this as detailed as you want. In the render that we're going to be doing, it's pretty far away, so you won't really tell. But in the top hand view, let's turn this back on for a second. You can tell it's got this little black piece, so I kind of want to make an edge loop on this. Out of X-ray mode, Control R. Just bring it over to something that's close. And then this whole piece, if you go back, it's going to be black into this. So what I'm now going to do is just tab into edit mode, go into the right hand view. Let's just inset this, and then we're going to just select these points. So Control to here, because this is a circle and these inset are a circle. I'm just going to do GY and bring these over like this, and then do the same thing here. GY, bring this over, just roughly close. You're not really going to tell. So something like that looks good. I'm just going to grab this face here, extrude along its normal out to that point on the black. And then now that that's a circle, we can just inset it. And then we could, control and make this a good way to do this. I think you can control and then right click, and that's going to basically bring the face along. But I don't want to do that for this. I'm just going to leave this plug as the way that it is. And then also we can make a little bit of detail on this. Let's Control B to bevel this right here. You should be able to Alt and select this. I'm going to hide the empty. We should be able to Alt, select this, and also give this a tiny bevel if we want to. But I actually don't think I'm going to do that because of this way we modeled this. Again, you would never really see this. But we can bevel this outside edge here. Control B. Because of how many faces I put, there's not even that really good a reason to do that. But we do want to add this detail right here. Select this, Control B. Just make a little ridge here. And then while those are selected, right click. Or 3, right click, extrude faces along normal, make a little inset detail. And then we could grab these two and then Control B, bevel them like that. The last thing that we want to do, we can right click, shade that auto smooth. The last piece of the modeling is we want to make a curve. That's the easiest way to make a chord in my opinion, at least for now. So let's turn on our reference again and then Shift A, let's just add in a curve. Actually, the easier way for me to do this is just to Shift A, add in a plane, and then GX to bring it over. I'm going to tab into edit mode, select all 4 vertices, M, merge at center. So now you just basically have a single vertice. I'm going to click 1 to grab it and GX. I just want to bring it somewhere over here. So now we know it's perfectly in line. I'm going to EX. So now what you're basically getting is, I'm going to go into X-ray mode. Now we've got a line with that EX. I'll just do that again so you can see. We're going to delete that vertice. So that one that we took, EX, I'm going to put EX again, just so this is straight. And now you can just press E and move this along, like so. All the way down. You can make this as long as you want, depending on your shot. And then now that we have all these, this is just a segment of lines and mesh. If you right click, convert to a curve, you can now go to your curve data, and you can use the geometry section and the bevel to just give this its shape. So I'm going to go out of Alt Z, bring this down, holding Shift, just roughly the size of that. You can now just apply a Control 2 subdivision surface. You could right click, shade this auto smooth. It might also be good to bump this resolution up to like 8. And then, you can Control 3 and make that super smooth. It looks a little thick, so I'm just going to go to here and do like 0.025, something like that. And now the good thing about this is you can just come into your curve, grab this, press E, and you can just make this go wherever you need it to go. Okay, that is all of the modeling for this design. In the next couple of videos, we're going to go through and do the texturing. We're going to use mainly procedural textures. We're going to also use some images, planes, decals for some faraway shots. If you enjoyed this video, you can watch the whole modeling of this when I did the first time for this render. It's uploaded to Patreon now, so you can watch the entire workflow of me modeling the first one as well as doing all the texturing and stuff like that. So subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and we will see you in the next one.